And joining us now from Minnesota himself is Matthew RJ Brodsky, the president of Red Axe Strategies and the chair of the American Center for Counter Extremism. Okay, how unusual is it that this video has directly triggered or accelerated this major federal law enforcement surge? And, how are local Minnesotans responding to this?
Well, what's unusual to begin with is that it took someone doing amateur camera work, literally just looking up where these places were, showing up there with the camera and asking basic questions, which is something that, frankly, our local media here has not been doing. They've run some stories. Most of the stories recently are basically an equivalent to the Republicans' Pounce type story. In other words, it's a reaction to what Republicans are doing about the fraud, but not about the fraud itself. So it's good that it's brought a bunch of national coverage. Now, on the other hand, as you might imagine, with President Trump really focusing on the Somali community, where the vast majority, 90% or more of the indicted are of Somali origin, his focus on them has made, of course, the local newspapers and the networks cover that side of things. So it's not covering the fraud, it's covering the so-called explosive rhetoric from the administration. And then you add to it the pool that long before this ever started out here, and we have some of this stuff on recording with our Attorney General, Keith Ellison, where if you notice this type of fraud going on, you are accused of being a racist. It's long been a card used by the progressive left around the country here, but it's something that has really been employed here now. So all the coverage is on, if you notice the fraud, you're racist, and that's what people are looking at in Minnesota. You add to it the ICE raids and that kind of coverage. It shouldn't be a surprise that it's a very divisive issue here as we go into the 2026 election cycle.
Right. Of course, there have been investigations right now. We're seeing, federal authorities show up to a lot of these different daycare centers. So far, they say that there hasn't been proof of fraud yet. A lot of these daycare centers that were highlighted by Nick Shirley claimed that he just showed up early, that, it wasn't actually the hours in which they were functioning. But then, of course, we heard distinct narratives from locals who say that actually they had never seen children showing up whatsoever to these facilities. So, I guess the question is, because we are seeing so much of a national focus on this issue, especially, with Trump, obviously, and his fractured relationship, you could say, with Ilhan Omar, his targeting of the Somali community. What is the truth here? What is the bigger picture here?
Well, Ilhan Omar started this all with being the champion of 2020 legislation called the Meals Act, which loosened all restrictions for giving meals to kids. This is a COVID era legislation that made checking where money is going a lot harder and just basically threw money at an issue. From there, we've created an entire system of fraud. So Trump is, of course, attacking Ilhan Omar. Omar, of course, says that everything is about racism and it's about Trump having an axe to grind against the community. But the fact is, the bulk of the people who have been indicted so far are Somali. And if Democrats are going to lean into the equivalent kind of defense, which is, we don't see $9 billion worth of fraud. I don't know where they're getting that number from. It's only $6 billion. Good luck using that as a form of defense, because what started as $250 million just from Feeding Our Future, one scandal, has now ballooned with autism scandals, with the childcare scandals, with housing scandals. So I think here we're going to see it play out, since all of the state races are on the ballot in 2026. Governor, Secretary of State, Attorney General. This is going to be a huge issue here in a state that is usually liberal. when an issue such as your tax money is being spent on fraud and enriching people privately, that's going to resonate. You can't really hide that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Matthew Brodsky, very fascinating to have you on with us. Of course, you are in Minnesota yourself, so I'm sure we'll be speaking with you as this story continues to unfold.